welcome back to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. And today I am so happy to have a brand new guest. I think you all are going to love her. She is your friendly neighborhood intuitive astrologer. You may know her on Instagram as the Pop Astrologist. Please welcome my new friend Tasha to the show. Hi, Tasha.
My God, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I am totally fangirling right now because I love your account and I love your insight. And I think it's so necessary in the Bravo fandom sphere, So thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for being here. You and I, we just kind of vibe together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're people who we never have met face to face before we did this podcast. But there was just something always about you I found really interesting. As someone who I look at things through the lens of psychology, you love to look at Bravo and pop culture and all of these things through your own intuitive astrological lens. And so before we start, today, because people listening, we're going to do some wild stuff today. Not only is Miss Tasha going to give me a reading, she's going to read me, honey, hopefully not for filth.
You know what? No promises, but in general, it's always in your best interest,
Okay, great. And listen, let the chips fall where they may, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tasha's also going to talk to us about what everything being an Aries means. And then she is going to give some hot takes on Amanda and West, what the stars have to say about Amanda and West.
Oh, God. What an astrological, can we cuss on this show?
Yes, cuss away.
Okay.
Cuss away.
What a shit show this has all been. And, part of the reason why I love observing pop culture through the lens of astrology, and that obviously includes Bravo, is because as much as, these are things that are happening outside of our lives and we are parasocially invested, there can be a lot we can learn from, even from a timing perspective, right? So for me, it's the idea of curating curiosity. So almost as if, oh, wow, their lives just completely blew up. But if I'm giving you dates leading up to the blow up in their life and you happen to share placements with these people, it can kind of maybe filter back into a different kind of introspection for your life. Like, oh, wait a minute, that something happened around that time for me as well. So now something else is happening. It might not be that I have decided to sleep with, another person in the summer house and blow up the friend group. But, and there's some chaos and there's some messiness over these last couple of years, and a lot of change is in the air, right? So you kind of ground it in these examples to give people a better understanding, hopefully.
Well, I love that. And I just, to me, I think it's so cool to take your background of what you're doing and apply it. I just think it's so fascinating. But before we even start, one thing I want you to share a little bit with folks, because you're new to the show, is you really have a super interesting background story. So I'm going to plug real quick. Her website is agentofpluto.com, which is a gorgeously done website. I mean, it's just you're gorgeous. I'm like, oh my gosh, smart, gorgeous, intuitive. Yeah, sign me up. So you had a history of being an executive on Wall Street.
And yes.
Then completely changed your whole plan to be doing what you're doing now. So can you tell us a little bit, as everyone's getting to know you, tell us a little bit of that transition and how that happened for you?
Totally. So, I mean, it is kind of a crazy story now that I think about it. I take myself out of what I'm doing in my life and go, wow, things have really changed. So I went to Wellesley College. So I have a double major in economics and Middle Eastern studies. So I was kind of always groomed, I think, to do the elite education and then work on Wall Street and then just, make a bunch of money, right?
Right.
And I started out in investment banking for a couple of years, which was very bad for my health. And so I decided, let me pivot.
You don't say.
Oh my God.
I mean yikes.
It was a time. And let me tell you, I think I always had operated under this guise of, I'm tough, I can hang, throw whatever at me. I'm here to prove myself to you, which now that in hindsight, right, that is the worst thing I could have operated off. The idea of I'm trying to prove myself to you. It's one thing to prove myself to myself, but if I am over relying on your validation, and that usually would come in the form of a bonus or money, right? Because these are very tangible things that prescribe value. It kind of, I guess, was a little bit of a mind fuck. And it took me a second to understand that. And, this is actually a very vulnerable thing. I've never actually shared it out wide with, people who don't know me personally. So this is like an exclusive on Your Bish Therapist. But
exclusive.
And this might be a little TW for some people, but I was in a very toxic workplace at my last gig. And I actually had run into a bunch of sexual harassment. And I say run into because it was multiple people, it was all in 1 week or 2 weeks, multiple people, whether it was objectifying the way I looked or grabbing my ass, especially people who weren't even I know there were so many things that were messed up with how I even processed that moment where I was like, you know what? I expect this from a managing director, but not my analyst. And so then it was like this, wow, I really have no power here. And that was the most important thing. I am very much a person that I'm not here to victim shame. And I felt like a victim at that moment in time. But what I think astrology then helped me do, because I tried to look for therapy, but for the most part, I outsmart a lot of the therapists I talk to, because it's like, okay, we're poking holes in the logic.
Fair enough. When you have a level of intelligence and understanding and awareness about yourself and the world, you do need someone who's going to be on that too. And so I'll relate to that. I needed a therapist who I couldn't talk circles around.
Totally.
And yes. So I completely understand that.
And I can imagine it's like dating, right? You got to find the right person that like really fits and understands you. And so what was interesting was my boss, and I love her. We're still friends, or my former boss. We're still friends to this day. She actually was going to pay for my therapy at the time because the company wanted nothing to do with this, right? And they were very, of course. It was also then I realized, what am I working so hard for?
Right.
Because everything was by the book. In theory, if I had filed a report, they would have been like, okay, yeah, this is wrong. But that wasn't the case. And it was such a rude awakening into the idea that if you fundamentally do not advocate for yourself, no one is going to do it for you. And I had to learn to take that power back. And so during COVID, when we're all working from home, I was on Instagram, of course, as we all are. And I felt called to this astrologer who is now a dear friend of mine. And I thought, whatever, might as well see what this is all about. When she read me, I'm very good at performing. And as I've learned in finance, sales and whatnot, she read me and she saw me. And it wasn't even like a disarming moment. It was wow, I feel understood by someone who doesn't know me. And that is actually kind of special, to be witnessed and not be judged. And I think that's kind of why I want to bring this into the atmosphere a little more and to introduce it to people who, might have certain preconceived notions about astrology. But for me, this is a tool that helped me pull myself out of a depression. This was a tool that allowed me to revisit myself, rewrite the story around what happened, and then really understood that as the moment I found myself, right, through some really shitty times. And so my thing was, I am going to make sure I get promoted to VP because I don't want people to think I couldn't hack it, which was also another insecurity thing.
Right.
But I felt like, let me finish the mission. Let me submit. Let me get this title. And then let me say I'm leaving on my own terms. So you can't say anything about what I've done. So it was a very big leap of faith, but I took some time off work. I literally took 2 months off work, mental health leave, to understand if this was the moment that made sense to leave. And very scary, of course. I'm not saying that everyone's built for it in the same way, but I had placements in my chart that would suggest you can make the leap of faith and that faith is going to take you far. And I had to trust that. So here I am 4 years later.
Gosh. And you know what? First of all, I just have to say that I appreciate you sharing your story because so on this podcast, there's a lot of survivors, thrivers, and people who, validation is very key and it's very important. And so there's a lot of survivors of sexual assault, sexual abuse, things like that, that when we all share our story, I think it just helps. It helps us and it helps others. So I know that was a vulnerable thing to do. And I want to say thank you on behalf of the YBT community because I know that some people appreciate that. And what an amazing gift that you gave yourself the gift of, it sounds like, freedom. You gave
Mm-hmm.
yourself the gift of freedom to say, okay, this was something I was kind of born into, bred into. You mentioned on your website, which I feel is a really important contextual piece, is you come from immigrant parents.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
immigrant parents, I'm wondering, like, did their heads just explode?
My gosh. Well, this is always a funny thing to say. So my dad actually passed away while I was in college, and I think for the bulk of my 20s, there was this sense of grief that I had not processed, that I just kind of decided to work through, and Wall Street was the best way to do it. And
I see.
I think about it a lot. If my father was still alive, I don't know if I could have had the courage to do this. And that's a very real thing. The idea
Yeah.
of that subconscious approval, right? And how it dictates what you choose to do, even if your parents are alive or not alive. Like, it's a very, very omnipresent force. And
Yes.
when I talk to my mom, I mean, my mom my mom understands that I cannot be tamed, and she did it up until I was 18, and then I left to college, and I told her, basically, like, I'm going to be very independent, right? So I do come from immigrant parents. My mom is Malaysian Chinese, my dad is Pakistani. I moved to the States when I was 14. All the accent and everything I learned from watching TV, like pop culture, has always been so important for me as an educational tool.
Isn't
Ultimately.
that interesting? So that's where the pop culture component comes in.
Totally.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, Tasha.
It all
Wow.
comes together.
It all comes back to Bravo. No, I'm just kidding. Well, so at
Actually.
that but at that age, is that what were you watching? Like, what were some of those
Oh my
things? Do you
gosh.
remember?
I mean, I used to love the OC. Like, I watched a bunch of Survivor as a kid. I even applied for Survivor recently and, like, actually got far in the process, which was, like, a whole funny thing as well. I was like, oh my God, am I going to actually do this? But, TV has always been such a big thing. And especially, I was trying to learn, like, how to speak Americanized English, like the slang, and I wanted to fit in. And so when I first moved to the States, like, TV was my best friend. And then getting over the accent or how I would position things. And so there was, to me, like, I learned a whole language from watching TV dramas as a kid. Right? Like, I learned Cantonese. I kind of picked up colloquially watching TV. So I'm a very big proponent of TV being a very educational, like, vessel if you choose to work with it intentionally rather than
Right.
just consumption,
Right. Well, I think you and I are good examples of that, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
that's kind of what we're doing here, which is like, we love this thing so much, but
Mhm.
instead of just watching the shit show, let's give some context to it. Let's help other people, whether it be psychologically or, with astrology and things like that. So it's so fascinating how your life, like, and this is where I feel like astrology is so fascinating too, is that I just don't believe in coincidences. And I think all of these things come together, especially psychologically speaking too, is that there's usually no growth without a period of serious upheaval.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like losses, the death of your father, the pandemic, and
Mhm.
being the subject of sexual harassment in an absolutely toxic AF work environment. I mean, all of these things led you here.
Mhm.
But in the process, sometimes it can really traumatize us. So that's where I come in.
Yeah. And here's the thing, I want to be very clear. Like, I work with clients and on a longer term basis. And I often am like, I hope you also have a therapist to help you unpack some of the gems or some of the things that we've stumbled upon in our reading together. Because I think that combination is amazing. Right? Like, I
I
can
love
give you
that.
insight, but a therapist is more trained to help you regulate it on a more root basis. But sometimes it's the idea of that insight is so elusive because, as you and I both know, people are imperfect narrators. And it's
Yeah.
the idea of, can you
Yes.
cut through the bullshit to really hold the mirror up? And so,
Mm.
I think the tandem or the collaboration between astrology and therapy is
Yes.
my favorite.
Chef's kiss, because I think, to your point, as a therapist, I was always a big proponent of do all the things. It takes a village to
Mhm.
be a healthy, functioning person. And what I mean by that is attending to your physical, emotional, spiritual health, all of those ways, in whatever ways work for you. So I think it's amazing because our lives intersected, and I feel it's just in a very interesting way. And so for everyone listening, what we're going to do now, I guess, is you're going to do a little bit of a reading for me, gulp. So my birthday was on April 4th. I am an Aries. And so we thought this would be a good opportunity not only to kind of to showcase a little bit of what exactly you do, because it could seem really vague, but you have so many
Totally.
tools in your tool bag. I want everyone to kind of see those. So let's start out with, and by the way, prior to this, I gave Tasha my birth date information, where I was born, the time that I was born. Yes, I did have to ask my mother. I did not remember that. And so what you're going to hear is a little bit of, because there's a lot of things you offer. You offer a ton of services. And so at the end, what we're going to do is, Tasha has been so sweet to offer a discount for Bishes. So we're going to, at the end of this, we're going to give discount codes and links and all of that. So yeah, so that's the plan at this point. So
Amazing.
Tasha, let's get started. Gosh, I'm nervous, girl.
Well, first of all, happy belated birthday. I hope you
Thank you.
had a beautiful, restful birthday. It's a pretty significant time to have a birthday, actually. Any Aries born
Right?
around this time, I would say. Because I feel
Yeah.
like Astro TikTok, or if you've just been scrolling, chances are you've probably heard Aries, this is the biggest year, or this is the most important
Yes.
moment, right? And it's so hyperbolic. It's almost like, oh my God, what's happening? And the gist is, right, the same way that the world in all its current shit show, right? The idea that, oh my God, world powers are changing, etc. There's a sense of the world being rebirthed. Okay. And as such,
I hear revolution, and I like
there
it.
is a lot of revolution in the air. And there is the idea that as above, so below, everything kind of mirrors the collective consciousness. Each individual, as such, is also going through a massive type of rebirth. All right. Especially if you have Aries in your chart. All right. Aries in the audience. And you actually have a lot of Aries, of course, Aries sun. But not only that, your moon is in Aries, Venus is in
Really?
Aries, Mars is in Aries. Oh, yeah, girl, you are front loading Aries hardcore. So, what I
Is that
love
why
about
I've been so is that why I've been on one the last week? Literally just
yeah.
like, I'm not kidding, in the last week, I don't know what happened to me. It's like Twitch flipped. I do not have time for people who don't do real talk. I just don't have time for it.
That, on some level, is what you're here to kind of cultivate. This idea of the courage to actually just say what I really need, say what I want, be a lot more direct about it. And I'm not going to lie, I might be pissing a lot of people off as part of the process. Okay.
Yes.
But that's all part of the promise. It's almost as if you're not pissing someone off, you're not doing it right, personally. All right. So it's almost, it's kind of like an uncomfortable dynamic to navigate, right? It's like, on the one hand, of course, as a Cancer rising, like, I want to be mom to all. I want to take care of everyone. And I'm such a mama bear. But at the same time, I can't self-erase to accommodate everyone else's preferences or perspectives.
Right. Right. And so what you're talking about too, psychologically
Mhm.
speaking, is a lot of times what people do when they have trauma. I know this is what I've done, is
Mhm.
that when you don't give the love that you need or that you deserve, sometimes you will spend your life trying to soften edges to get people to love you, to get people to see you, to get people
Mhm.
to appreciate you. And so it's interesting that even kind of that my history of experience that is aligning with my chart. That's interesting.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, right? I always think about why. Why would someone need all of this Aries? Right? It's more than just, I'm an Aries, so I'm an initiator, I'm a pioneer, I stick my neck out, I'm a leader, right? Like, these are all terms maybe we're familiar with or we identify with as well. But when I think about, all right, why am I choosing this much Aries in my chart? I am choosing to learn how to lead. I'm choosing to learn how to be, not to say different, but it is the idea that with Aries, you're going to be a first mover. You're going to stick your neck out. You're going to do something that disrupts the status quo, and you are expected to, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So when you think about the doubling down of, again, there's so much in Aries in the sky, there's just there's an extra emphasis on initiating something new, something not yet seen, and going off into the unknown and feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And for you, all this Aries is concentrated in your 10th house of career, of legacy, of reputation. And it very much is the idea that, listen, part of the reputation is I'm going to be, not to say controversial, but I have an opinion, I'm going to stick to it. But it's also not to say F you with your opinion, right? It's very much the idea of I'm learning how to hold the objectivity as a therapist, but I also get to still honor my conclusion. And it kind of diffuses anger that way because there's a lot of rage or anger and excess energy that can kind of run through the chart. And if we're not careful in terms of externally directing it, it then kind of turns against us and it creates a lot of physical inflammation within ourselves. And so
that's why I have 700 autoimmune diseases, everyone. I mean, she just clocked the shit out of me. No, you're totally right. I'm not kidding. I have autoimmune disease after autoimmune disease, and that everything you just said is so spot on. It's scary.
Well, what I would say is this, right? Part of then the impetus is if I feel like I have an outlet to express myself, that kind of diffuses some of the internal energy that's being directed back at me. I get to now repurpose it outward. So my whole thing is working with energy. The idea that everyone understands that when you walk into a room, you're picking up bad vibes or good vibes. We've all said this, right? Good vibe or bad vibe. But what does that really mean? And so with astrology, I'm giving you an opportunity to really understand what the vibe check is so that you can use it to your advantage, really, right? So what's annoying about this person? It's like, oh, I have to work with it differently. This person is encouraging me or challenging me to step up. So on some level, it is the idea of I have to be toothy, all right? I have to be a little dangerous and it's uncomfortable. And on some level, your chart is a lot about, I would say, winding down and unpacking relationships, almost as if I'm kind of letting a lot go. And admittedly, you were born under a moon phase that was just before a new moon. Okay. So we just came out of a new moon in Aries, mind you. So again, this doubling down on a total new beginning around career that is going to unfold over the next 27 months. There's also potentially a lot about mom stuff that might come up as well, but we're not going to talk about that. But that's just for you to clock and keep in the back of your mind.
Okay.
But it is the idea that a new beginning is happening regardless if we take action or not. So my thing is, okay, then take action because you want to work with it rather than let the energy control you. So 2 dates you're going to be thinking about intentionally, all right? So whatever intentions you're setting, and actually this is a really lovely time for the pod to drop because this week is kind of a really lovely time to kind of get a little clear on the idea that has been percolating for you since last summer, right? It's a new beginning, but it's not to say that it's fresh and unexpected, although it might seem for some people. The sauce really comes from last summer. All right. And a little bit from early this year. So there's already traces of the new beginning trying to sprout through. And it is the idea of actively taking action and doubling down on it. So in relation to whatever goals you're setting for yourself, January of next year is going to be a really important either course corrective moment if you haven't taken the action necessary, or if you have already, there's a plot development. But then there's a big kind of culminating moment by October of 2027. And this is like clockwork. Astrology is really a study of time. And it really is the idea of what's happening at this time right now. And it does show you if you've been honest about actually taking action, which is very much an Aries thing, taking action.
Yeah. I'm an action taker. I'm a truth speaker, but I have my whole life tried to soften my edges to make myself more palatable for people. However, last week I just decided that stops now.
Yes. Yes, girl. Because
serious.
Honestly.
Tasha, I just talked to my therapist today and she was like, what has changed since last week? I'm like, girl, I don't know.
Yes.
But yeah.
I was going to say, these last couple of weeks especially have been very heavy on the Aries front. The idea of, am I too much? Am I too little? Fuck it, get over that because you just got to show up and your perspective matters. Like, it's very Emma Grede coded. Like, it really does start with you. So depending on how you feel about the Emma Grede, narrative out there, I like the ethos of it. The idea that it really starts with you. And then you have to be honest about what it is you're going after, getting clear on the ambition, and just going for it. Because the peanut gallery is always going to have something to say, especially with your chart, unfortunately, right?
Here's the thing, and this is what I literally just realized, is that whatever I say, someone's always going to be mad about it. Period. If I cover something, if I don't cover something, if I say something, if I don't say, part of being in this space for me, it means that I have to accept that when I speak my truth, some people will be upset, and there will be things that they will do to try to take power over that, to retaliate, things like that, bad reviews, blah, blah, blah. I don't care anymore. Hear that, everyone?
Yes.
I'm going to tap the mic. I don't care. Okay.
I wish you could mic drop that.
Boom.
But you know what? To me, there's a really empowering thing, right? That I'm telling you, hey, you're not here to be liked by everyone. Okay. So the more you try, the more you're going to fail at your ultimate goal. And if you're not pissing, and what I said earlier, if you're not pissing anyone off, you're probably doing it wrong. Okay. Like,
clock that. Yeah.
And what I would say is this too, again, if you have a lot of Aries in your chart, and it might not just even be Aries, okay? Aries is a cardinal sign. So you're thinking the Cancers in the room, you're thinking Capricorns in the room, you're also thinking about the Libras in the room, okay? Every one of these signs all has a connection to Aries. So just because this is a conversation about Aries, it is the idea that it's still energy that is affecting all those signs in a very, very loud way. So when I think about it, you might think about the main structural pillars of your life. It's always self, family, career, and the other partner. Okay, so these 4 signs would have experienced a lot of maybe, I don't want to say disruption per se, but there would have been an impetus to either start something new as a function of I've outgrown the old identity. All right. So how, in between identities, it can be quite confusing, right? Like, I'm no longer satisfied by all of this, yet I don't know what the new beginning looks like. And on some level, this is what the last year and a half has been trying to get us to get comfortable with. The idea of that old life, whatever life you're thinking about stopping to starting over or reinvigorating, that old life is done. All right. We are rebirthing hardcore. Yeah. And so now we're getting all of this Aries energy so that we can do something with it. And so, here's the thing, I would actually say that a lot of people, I'm sure you also feel this way, maybe project a mom onto you, right? Like the idea of the parent in the room, and you're the wise person. You've got all this insight. So that's why people are like, well, talk about this. See me, meet me where I'm at. And on some level, it's like, let the F go. Mom needs to fly. Mom needs to be free. And so there is a lot about your independence, even over these last 7 years, finding your voice. And this week, really culminating in the moment where, you know what? I have found that voice. And you know what? I'm going to double down on it. Does that mean let me create more? Does that mean let me write something? There's just a lot of curiosity that's about to get also injected into your chart at the end of this week. If you're a Gemini, know that the next 7 years are going to bring about a lot of disruption and changes. But again, people are like, oh my God, that sounds terrifying. But what I want to say is this. Anytime a significant change happens to you in the chart, it is this idea that the soul is looking for freedom or an awakening and a pivot. And a lot of times, like our ego, with all our attachments to social approval, to our parents' approval, that really almost muzzles the soul desire to really break out, right? So
preach, Tasha. That is so well said. How you just said that, it makes so much sense. When we let all this stuff quiet our intuitive natural self, there's a part of ego death that happens. And what you're saying is, if I'm hearing this correctly, is it's time for me and for other signs too, to take that power back.
Yes, 110%. Because if you're expecting someone to come save you or, let me go work in the same role at another job, whatever, make more money, let me tell you, it's going to be a little tough economically speaking. You don't need to be an astrologer to know that. You kind of all see what's happening. But it is the idea that the world is shifting towards more self-ownership, whether that's, you know what? If you're not going to give me the opportunity, I'm going to build the opportunity. I'm going to make that happen. That's why I love the timing of this podcast release, because on some level, if you're not even a woo person, like it's more than that, right? It's the idea of this weekend into this week, there should be changes or there should be events that are sparking an awareness or at the very least enabling you to really double down on what you want to accomplish over the next couple of years. And literally, the 2 dates I talked to you about earlier, that Jan and October 2010, you're going to see notable developments related to these goals at those times. So on some level, there's accountability baked in to the clock, right? Like if I start something now and let's say I wanted to write a book right now. If I haven't written the book by Jan, all right, I got to write the book now, because 9 months later, it's going to birth something significant. And it all is related to birthing things, right? There is a very feminine type of, I think, prescription that the universe wants to give us. There's this, I know there's so much conversation about matriarchy rising, just the idea of the feminine needing to come in to attenuate whatever male fuckery is going on right now, right?
Smash the patriarchy.
I mean, what a brutal week to be a woman, honestly, with all the news that has been coming up.
Week, month, year, since basically
the beginning of time.
Yeah, no, for real. So all of these things that you're saying, it sounds like some of it is specific to my chart, but then some of it is other characteristics of other signs and things like that. And so, okay, that makes sense to me. So with everything being in Aries, is that something that it's impacting me, obviously, as an Aries, but for other people, it's going to have similar impacts as well?
Yes, absolutely. I would say a special runner-up shout out to Scorpios in the room, because Mars is the planet that rules over Aries. It also rules over Scorpio. So whenever there's an activation with Aries, the Scorpio, signs are also going to feel it. But this is really the secret. Everyone has all 12 signs in the zodiac in their chart, basically.
I didn't know that.
It covers just different parts of your life. So let's say, again, where your Aries is in your chart as a Cancer rising, it's in the 10th house of career. But for me as a Scorpio rising, Aries is in my 6th house of routine and work. So for me, it is the sense of how am I rebuilding my systems to support my offerings, to support my career and purpose, but also my health. But again, for you, especially this year at your birthday year, so every year we also get a specific thematic focus in the chart to show us where things are developing. And your year happens to be very much about career, but also maybe a sense of I'm reintroducing myself to the public. Maybe there's a rebrand, the idea of how do I want to even, again, expand this Yorbish therapist world, right? Maybe again, there's the idea of should I go out and talk more on podcasts? Because admittedly, you're midheaven, so this is what you're going to be known for, what you are striving for, is in that 9th house of broadcasting, book writing, publication. There's just a lot about you being a visionary and having almost to cultivate confidence in your perspective, especially who I get to trust, all right, to collaborate with. Okay.
Tasha,
so that I can bring that vision to life.
Girl, I'm speechless. I'm speechless because okay. I'm collecting my thoughts. Yeah, that just definitely hit on something, who I collaborate with. Because I'm finding out in this arena, there's a lot of fuckery that goes on with content creators.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've been reevaluating. Yeah, I've been reevaluating. So that's wild.
I was going to say also, if you're looking for a date to launch something, announce something that's really pleasant, May 19th or May 18th and 19th, but I would say 19th because the moon will be void on that Monday. But that's honestly, and this is for listeners too, if, you've been thinking about starting something, thinking about announcing something, that's a really lovely day to, at the very least, plant those seeds or at least get it out there to the audience. So again, if you're like, let me rebrand, let me think about a different way of approaching this, let me offer something new, let me create a new segment, okay? Like there is so much potency. And sometimes even if I don't even have an idea about what I want to do, right? But as an astrologer, I know, oh, these dates are really lovely. It'd be such a shame for me to not do something with these dates, right? Like, so it kind of even works from that productive standpoint. And so again, what I will say is this, by the end of this week, so there's going to be a lot of disruption. And again, this is a disruptive time because disruption through the chaos, something new gets built. And so again, you're thinking now about the Geminis in the room, the Gemini part of your chart. For you, this is your 12th house. So there is a lot about liberating yourself from the internal scripts that underscore your belief in terms of what is possible. So let me say that in a less woo-woo sense, okay? Because I get it. I totally get it. Like some people will get it, some people won't. But there's a sense of further voice liberation. Almost as if I know you have amazing takes, but it's like there's more that actually can be pulled out of you.
You
quite
are
honestly.
100,000% right. 100,000% right.
Not to put you on the spot, but just
No.
there's more genius coming out of you, you know? That's like such a waste for all of us to not get.
And well, thank you. That's very sweet. I wouldn't call it genius, but what I will say is that, I have muted my voice out of fear. I am a sensitive person, and in this space, it's very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
How people interact with, like, I have always been someone a beacon of light for a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm.
So good, bad, and ugly. And being on this space, it's like what I've experienced in life, but times like a million.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely have muted my voice because fear and how is this going to impact me? Do I want to deal with this? Blah, blah, blah. And then sometime last week, I swear to you, I was just like, I am done with that.
Yeah.
I'm done. But now implementation is key.
Implementation is key. And for what it's worth, I think that's what the second half of the year is. I say second half. I mean, it's already close to May, but that's really the gist of what the rest of the year is going to bring, right? Like as much as, astrology is like, oh, there's something new all the time. It's something new communicated in a different way because it's still trying to get you to do the underlying thing, which is individuate, right? And so when you think about the symbol around this new moon, there was a lot about, I'm disappointing a large audience. Or that's the symbol for this new moon. For the Virgos in the room, that might be super triggering. I use the word disappointment. Like that is the biggest fear of a Virgo. Like, oh my God, I've just disappointed an expectation, right? And what I would say to that is, if you are disappointing expectation, you're doing something right. It's a very similar thing to what I said to you earlier. The more people you piss off, the better it is for you, actually. And what's also really important for you to kind of maybe internalize even, right, is this idea of, I have to practice a lot. This chart is rooted in discernment around who I want to surround myself with versus who I think can actually help me get to where I need to be, right? Like there's a sense of who do I feel like I have to be friends with or collaborate with to get to the next level versus does this actually fit my animal instinct? Yeah, because it's almost as if like I'm trying to learn what my body is saying. So if I'm experiencing a flare up as I'm talking to this person, I should not be talking to this person because that is my body telling me code red, code red, code red. And you're learning how to just say, you know what, I'm good, thank you. Maybe in the future if this feels aligned, but right now it does not feel aligned, right? Like we're learning that it's okay to say that. And on some level, you're also learning to prove self to self in this lifetime. The idea that, especially with my creativity, your creativity, okay?
Yeah.
It's a meaningful part of it. The idea of I have to commit to it. How do I make this a routine? But again, it's all underscored by belief, right? Can I make this happen? Because there's a difference in the action you take, because this is all Aries. There's a difference between the action you take versus what you actually end up doing as a function of that subconscious belief.
Yes. Yes.
And so many of us are coming out of a 2.5 year period, but really like this has been something that's been happening since 2011. Okay. It's like a long chapter of maybe going after something that we thought we really wanted and then navigating the disillusionment of realizing that's actually not what we wanted, but it was so convincing. And that I thought that was everything. And then now having to grapple with the idea of everything I thought I wanted wasn't actually what I really needed. And so when we try to find our way again, it's disorienting, right? Because it's
Right.
like, do I even know myself? But there's a sense of being curious with
Mm-hmm.
yourself and allowing that inner child to really say, hey, remember what we used to like as a kid? Maybe we should just play a little more. And that play can then bring up another idea. So it's going to be a powerful 7 years, I think, around you liberating your voice even more. But the more proactive you are with it, the better it works for you rather than feeling, oh my God, more things keep happening. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I am I'm sweating. I'm literally sweating.
Here's the thing. I totally get it. It is very unnerving sometimes to be, or intimidating even, right? To be in a one-on-one dynamic like this and then feel like, oh my God, everything is out there. But if you notice, I'm not saying anything specific, right? I'm dropping it and you are also picking up what exactly I'm putting down.
Yeah.
Because this is a public audience and I'm not trying to out you in front of people, but these are themes that I think everyone can generally understand about
Oh
themselves. There's
my
something for
gosh.
everyone.
Yes. No, number one, Tasha, first of all, I'm sweating because you're just like so spot on. All of the things that you're talking about are things that I've been working through in therapy. And so
Mm,
for me, what's very validating about this is that everything that you're sharing with me is in alignment with what I already have been working on shifting.
mhm.
And like I said to my therapist the other day, like I feel like I lived the first 45 years for everybody else, and now it's time for me. And so, and like in terms of with the podcast, I never understand or know like how to do this, but
Mhm.
I just like I think the other part for me is like my creative self, she was never allowed to be.
Yeah.
But that was like kind of my own doing. And so I was thinking about the other day, like how amazing it is that I get this creative outlet. Like it's something that I didn't get when I was doing therapy with people. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I never would have, like, I thought to myself, I never would have done this, but it almost feels like this is what I was supposed to be doing, if that makes
Absolute.
sense. And so that's like
Absolutely.
aligning right with what you're saying. Yeah.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, right? At the end of the day, when someone has this much Aries in the 10th house, especially, or any placements in the 10th house, there is such a need to materialize the voice within. And here's the thing. I think ambition and woman and the idea of going after something and making something happen again is a very controversial topic these days around how much work do you put in versus soft life, etc. Right? And I have my own thoughts about that. But there is an undeniable thing in the chart here around want to actually make this something, or I want to be something, and I want to be, not to say, I'm just going to say it, I want to be important. And I
Yeah.
think that's okay to acknowledge, because what does that mean? That means I'm acknowledging an authority. It's almost as if the chart is trying to get you to reclaim confidence and reclaim authority. And that has to be very much the foundation of everything you do. And so when you operate from that place, it then kind of opens things up for you. And that's why, to be honest, I am very hyped, because I think you need to go bigger with your podcast. I think you need to strive for, I mean, not that I'm not a great guest, but it is the idea that you can reach out to other people, even bigger people, just the idea that, new levels, new devils. If I want to upload this, I'm going to
Right.
go to the next level. Let me give my voice. It's almost like it's imperative for me to get my voice out there, because I have a very important message to deliver to people on behalf of people. But it's also the idea that with your chart, I'm learning quality control, meaning I'm not just saying yes to everything. I'm just doing everything and throwing the dart, because that's also insecurity, right? Because it's let me just try, let me just settle. But really, it's the idea of I'm learning to hone the discretion on who I want to work with, what content I want to put out. And it's not, there's no doubt about this being good content. It's more the idea of, okay, let me regulate it a little bit. Because again, under your moon phase, it's not a go, go, go type of chart. Okay. It is go, 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 but for the things you like. And that's where you can get natural energy. But the more you try to do something, again, based on like the corporate, the typical thing, it will drain and exhaust you in different ways. And so again, it's almost as if like for you, it's important to have even like a spiritual grounding practice on the day to day to just kind of regulate before you even like go out into the world and do your thing, just so you don't get your perspective lost in the sauce and that you get a very strong sense of personal integrity. Okay. So
Yes.
yeah.
So, my gosh, wow. And I can't wait to talk to you offline about this because I'm the type of person like I'll just think about this for 100 years and
Oh
come
my
up
God.
like, so I'll have to talk to you about this offline too. But like, it makes so much sense. It's so spot on. It's so validating. It's so thought provoking. And I think, again, it's like what you're doing and what I'm doing, it's like it all makes so much sense that I just feel, yeah, I feel very validated. I feel very seen. And look, can I ask you a question? With the
Of course.
spiritual practice, do you have
Yeah.
any recommendations for maybe me or for other people listening? Like, I know for
Hmm.
everyone, that's different, right? It's about what
Right.
connects to your spirit. But do you
Yeah.
have any suggestions or thoughts about practices that could be helpful?
Oh my God. Honestly, the easiest thing, first thing in the morning before you even open your eyes, it's a spiritual practice to even go, today is going to be a great day. We'll see what comes my way. Like just
I love
even
that.
declaring it, right? Before you get out of bed, close your eyes. Today's going to be a great day. We'll see what comes my way. Boom. Take on the world because you're already resetting the filter. Because I'm a big person of how I approach a circumstance and the idea of that approach then dictating the reality of the circumstance. So ultimately, if you kind of start already with the notion of this is going to be a great day, okay? Whatever comes is
Yeah.
still going to factor into the great day. But
Right.
I'm equipped to handle that from a more, a less like anxiety driven perspective of, oh my God, what could go wrong right now? Versus like, I've already declared this is going to be a great day. Okay. Regardless of what comes, it is going to be a great day. I'm not saying to bypass anything that comes up, but what I am saying is you have to already center it in a good place before you can
Sure.
even go out and mingle with everyone else because you are very spongy, I must say.
Oh my God, girl.
Intuitively you pick shit up
It's
even if you don't
crazy.
want it.
Especially when I don't want it.
Especially
Especially when I don't want it. At the
yes.
grocery store, people like they'll just come to me and be like, "You're someone who I can talk to." And I'm like, "I'm in line." "No,
Yeah.
ma'am. Thank you."
Yes.
So yes, I am very spongy. Yes.
Very important. Again, the power of no, thank you,
Yeah.
and we're moving
Thank you,
on.
but gotta go.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Or book a session. LOL.
Exactly. Exactly. But no, I mean, essentially too, what you're saying, it vibes so much with me because it's like, I think, psychologically speaking, it's like when you wake up, like it's setting your intention for the day. One of my favorite sayings, because as you clocked, I do tend to run on anxiety. Anxiety,
Mm.
like if I could fuel a small country with my anxiety,
Yeah.
they'd be green because I could feel it. Okay.
Gotta
But
get
I
those
try to tell
bikes, those
myself,
workout bikes.
my God, literally, like literally. But I like to remind myself, what's coming will come and I'll meet it when it does. Because I know the thing about me is that I am literally unstoppable. I can do anything that I set my mind to. I'm the one that limits myself. And
Mhm.
so what we're kind of saying is if we peel all that away and I start trusting my voice and I start moving from a place of just being my authentic self and letting the chips fall where they may, that's probably going to be a happier, more successful me. Is that a good
Absolutely.
synopsis?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I cannot emphasize how this year is just so important for you to really double down on all that your voice has to offer. If there was ever a more fertile time, it's these next couple of months into early June. So lay the groundwork, lay those tracks, really take one step in that direction, whether it's reaching out to people, whether that's setting an agenda or a vision for where you see your bitch therapist in 2 years, right? It's not that far away. It's 2 years. So what do I want to accomplish with this? Who do I want to reach? What kind of guest do I want? Where do I see myself, talking about this more like to a larger audience, right? Like even the idea of speaking engagements. I mean, like there's a lot here about the chart around as long as I am in creative flow, I have energy to do so. And it is then turning anger, that is unused energy, away from my body and out into the open. And I would also imagine that in these moments that you maybe like are sick or don't feel like fully up to, like I need to take a break from something, which is also really important with the chart. All right. Nurturing your burnout. But there is something here about when you're nurturing the burnout, there is the idea of what are the angels whispering to you in those moments, meaning what inspiration is coming through, what things are you reading that can actually be incredibly helpful at turning it into something more substantive, So it is very much the idea of paying attention, being a little more aware of what you're consuming, what you're reading when you are being forced to have downtime so that it can then
Yeah.
plant the seeds for other stuff.
Right. I think it's turning the focus back to me and just letting my voice be free regardless of all the invisible shackles that I place upon myself.
Yes, absolutely.
Tasha,
Absolutely.
when I talk to my therapist about this, she's going to be like, "Girl, I've been told you that." That's what she's going to say.
That's why I say they work hand in hand. What I like to think is, when it's like an intake, right? And like we do the dance
Yeah.
and we try to
Yeah,
figure out
yeah.
what your story is. I'm kind of like, let me summarize 5 intake sessions into one session and like, let's then just go ahead and unpack all of that, right? Like, but this is the gist of who you are and what you're navigating. So let's then evolve from that rather than waste more time going back and forth trying to figure out what the narrative is here. Because at the end of the day, your chart really, to me, speaks to, again, like, I'm really here to close out this old chapter around like I'm not here to get sucked into the drama. Okay. I'm kind of here to close that out. And in doing so, I get to still advance my opinion, but like, it's almost like I'm not here to really engage with the haterade. Thank you for your engagement. Moving on. Right. And in fact, every time you get a bad review, I kind of want you to just collect those bad reviews and I want you to just post it on your page. Hey, collection of really shitty reviews. If you don't like me, this is it. Like, it's just owning that type of brand, right? Like, which sounds so crazy. Like, why would I show the bad side? No, this person said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Cool. Great. But like, you know what I mean? Just really embracing it.
What I'm hearing is I need to embrace the fact that people aren't going to like me and that is okay. And people are going to take their power where they can, but that doesn't mean that I need to change how I move, because when I do that, I am disingenuous with myself. And when I'm disingenuous with myself, my body, my mental, physical, spiritual, emotional health, it's all going to not be great. So I think this is also a good message for people, which is that, as humans, if we don't grow, we tend to rot like bad fruit. That's kind of the example that I use. And so to get to this point, I have had to crawl through blood and mud and broken glass. And the thought of doing more may seem daunting, but I actually feel really excited. And I hope that that relates to other people as well, who are maybe they know that there's something they need to change, or there's something that they need to do that they've been putting off. There is so much power in just being so authentic to yourself and then moving that way. And I feel like that is when things will fall into place. And in fact, we joked when I was telling you about my tooth removal, you were like, well, that tooth is part of your old story. I was like, oh, for real? And now she's out.
It's kind of cool to think about that, right? Like everything to me is an extension of you. And so there is meaning in everything. Well, unless I'm talking to like Andreessen Horowitz or whatever, who is like introspection. What is that? But truly, right? Like when I think about where Saturn is in your chart, Saturn ruling like the structures of our body and our systems, the fact that you have Saturn at the bottom of your chart in your house of personal myth, it's also family. There's also a lot about father wounds baked into that tooth, okay? So the idea that if I am pulling the tooth out, that's not as present in terms of my internal structure of who I think I am anymore. So there's a deeper symbolism around that, actually.
Girl,
Mhm.
Yeah. When you're right, you're right. I'm like Shannon Bedore. I'm like, Tasha's right. I don't know. She's right.
I mean, not to toot my own horn, but like I did read Giselle at her birthday a couple of years
Did
ago in the
you
city. Yeah, Ashley Darby actually invited me to read
really?
both Ashley and Giselle for her birthday. And my whatchamacallit, my claim to fame or, my badge of honor is Giselle, after we were finished with our reading, was like, "Ooh, I hate you."
Which for Giselle, that means you were spot on because she does
Right.
not like the truth. She does not like honesty. She does not like
Exactly.
the truth. So you got our girl Giselle. Well, Tasha, I had no idea that you did that. How exciting of an opportunity.
Oh my God. It was
Gosh.
every Bravo fan's dream. I felt very humbled because, that was still me trying to figure this whole thing out. And so it's one of those things, right? When the universe shows you opportunity, do you say yes or not? I think at that point, I could have just been super insecure and said, I'm not ready yet. I've only been doing this for X amount of time. But at that moment, it just felt, hell yeah, I want to read Giselle and Ashley. I want to see what's up. And it was such a fun experience, honestly. I'm so thankful for it.
Girl, I'm so proud of you. That is so amazing. And I feel like I want to hear a little bit more about that. But
Yeah.
one thing, because I want to be respectful of your time, I feel like we could talk for 100 years. I want to chat. I want to try to chat about the Amanda and West
Oh my
of
God.
it all. So have you been a Summer House fan like since the beginning? Yeah.
I was a Summer House fan before I even got into astrology. Let's just be very
Okay.
clear about that. So it's kind of interesting to then now get to apply the lens in a different way, in a more, ooh, what's really happening beneath the surface. And again, I know there is a lot of speculation on timeline. And I think Wes came out yesterday, right, with his stupid podcast. Again, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I can hold space for a lot of people. And if Wes were to ever get a reading from me, which, you never say never, but I don't judge, right? I can comment on what you did because there's no shame in saying you just did something that is pretty fucked up. But let's understand why you did that. And let's have a conversation about it. And maybe there's
Sure.
hope, right? But when I thought about what he said about timing, my main position has always been, even when the rumors broke, this, based on the transits, based on what I know about transit, has been brewing since November 2024.
Oh, you heard that here first. November
Mm-hmm. 2024.
2024.
Yes.
This has been brewing. Okay.
And I would say that maybe Jan 2025, things got maybe more physical or real. And then that's why you hear the timing of Wes being like, we realized we had deeper feelings for each other in Feb, when I had been very strongly maintaining that the timeline speaks to that winter of 2024 into 2025 and spring of 2025. Because people were just speculating on, were they hooking up last season as the show was running? And my thing is, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, because this really all, again, stems from that November 2024 period. And here's the thing, even if you are not privy to the scamanda of it all, in your personal life, it is the idea that whatever is coming up now, whatever is coming to a culmination now for everyone, would have its origins around that point as well.
Right.
So it's just coming out in a different way here. And so again, if you've got Cancer, which we think about for Amanda, she got a placement in Cancer, which is why I was like, oh, it's in your house of secrets. Interesting. No one's going to really know what's happening behind closed door. But now things are coming out so that everyone can see. And so that's why I'm like, November 2020, that winter, fall 2024 into spring of 2025, potent, really, really hot for the timeline.
Interesting, Tasha.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do the stars say about their ability to because my cycle, I have a psychological take, and I want to hear what the stars have to say.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, Jesse kind of said it best. Amanda basically picked another Kyle, a younger Kyle. And what's fascinating is I actually do think that they have pretty interesting synastry. Now, I will say this, compatibility is a myth, okay? It is not the idea that just because we have compatible placements, this is going to be a relationship that goes the distance. I've had really bad relationships happen with compatible placements. It just facilitates habits that maybe, with the challenging compatibility, we would not be able to alter otherwise, right? So it kind of goes into this old habitual thing. I mean, they have intense sexual magnetism, I would say, Amanda and Wes. There's always something
Well,
there.
yeah. I mean, I think
Absolutely.
that's what I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it's love. I think she's having the best orgasms of her life, which God bless if
Mm-hmm.
that's the case. But I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying, love versus lust, they're very different. They're different.
Totally. I think Amanda may actually remind Wes of his mom. If I'm being, I mean, and that's like not a crazy thing to say, right? Like we all tend to gravitate towards partners that remind us of like the
Oh,
people that
sure.
took care of us, right? But there's a particular placement between the both of them where it really talks about Wes's like childhood and his nurturing and what he received growing up from his mother, whether that's performance, whether that's creativity, whether that's how, when I say performance, right, how someone tries to perform in a relationship to mold to your world. And so when I think about where that is in the chart, Wes gets a huge confidence boost. There's almost like the idea, and this is maybe something deeper that I'm tapping into, and I could be wrong, of course, but there is something here about Wes wanting to be the alpha in the room and that Kyle was the old alpha. And there's like a changing
Yeah.
of the guard, right? Because there's also
Yeah.
this Ozark show that's coming out, and Wes has kind of really made media and brand like his whole thing with Complex. So when I think about someone who also, he's a Scorpio rising, he's got a Capricorn stellium with like Sierra. So I can see why there was a connection there as
Interesting.
well. Totally. Like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Bess, I would say, is not really here to relationship. And that's the thing. If
Yeah.
I were talking to Wes, I'd be like, please don't settle down with people early on. And please also let people know I'm not really looking to settle down until maybe I hit like, I don't know, he's 1994, post Saturn return, post maybe like even in his mid 40s, even. Like this is a chart that I would say like, just do your thing, explore. But you have historically and in past lives even been defined by relationship and the idea of relationship controlling your freedom. So go be ambitious,
Right.
go do your thing. And it's so different than like, don't do this or whatever, right? It's the idea of don't get caught up in this bullshit with relationships because what you're here to do is kind of be a little bit of a selfish mofo and be a lot more discerning about where you should put your dick.
Yeah.
Frankly.
And you know what, Tasha? What you just said, kind of what their charts tell you, is the same thing that Jesse said. Do you remember when Jesse made that joke
Mm-hmm.
that did not age well when he was like, West is going to be Kyle Cook's age by the
Yep.
time he's ready to settle down? I was like, oh, damn. He's right.
Mm-hmm.
And you're
Mm-hmm.
right. And that is why I feel like this is such a disaster because it's like now these two have gotten themselves into a situation. Amanda has psychologically absolutely chosen another Kyle, a younger Kyle, same
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, different day, different guy. And until she is ready to hold that mirror up to her face and look at her role in these unhealthy relationships, we're destined to continue to make those unhealthy choices for ourselves. I'm not saying West is a bad
Mm-hmm.
guy. I don't like West. I love
Mm-hmm.
that people call him Midwest because he is mid in every way, shape, or form, if I'm being honest. I love that. But I think that what you're saying is like we choose people based off of the relationships that we have, what we've learned about what is love and what is partnership and what is
Mm-hmm.
communication. And what I think happens a lot, what I've seen psychologically, is that we pick people who tend to match our wounds. And that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of what you're saying in terms of even what like the stars in astrology are saying is that
Mm-hmm.
there are some parts where they do have a lot of compatibility, right? Like
Yes.
Amanda and Kyle weren't having a lot of sex. So perhaps this sexual chemistry is
Mm-hmm.
very empowering to her, very appealing to her and things like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think she's short-sighted in this. Looking
Mm-hmm.
at, well, you just blew up your whole life for someone who is most certainly not going to commit to you. He's
Mm-hmm.
he's not. I mean, unless West makes a whole thing of like, when Sierra did the interview in Glamour, which was amazing, which she
Mm-hmm.
talked about like either get married, like either be something or don't, because this is a
Yeah.
wild thing to blow up your life for. So in terms of their like long-term compatibility, it's sounding like both of us are not seeing success there.
But as Justin Bieber would say never, because people can surprise you. But what I will say is this: October and November this year, maybe August, okay? August into September into October, right after the summer, will be very interesting for the both of them. And it would not surprise me if there was somehow a plot twist that Amanda finds her way back with Kyle even after this. But again, it's just going to be like, I just pulled up the charts of Wes and Amanda together to see like what that vibe is. I mean, hello. I would imagine by late August, there'd be a very big moment. Here's the thing, either it's like, I won't say it's pregnancy, but it really is the idea of, I know, like something happens, accidentally that really wakes you up or like really shakes up something. But then it really does signify that there could be a rearranging of the relationship at that time. And so for Kyle's chart, a lot of this is happening in his relationship house. For Amanda, it's a lot about home and family. And for Wes, it's a lot about his identity and also what he's letting go of from the past with unhealthy relationships. So again, the triangulation of all these things and because Amanda and Kyle haven't officially filed for divorce yet, right? They've separated, they have initiated, but they haven't actually filed.
That's right. And it's so funny because when you were talking about that, it made me think of when he did that interview on the street, which was like so odd, but what have you.
Love Kyle for these moments.
That's so Kyle. Exactly. But I swear to you, I had the intuitive feeling that I was like, I feel like Kyle is supporting Amanda now in ways that she always wanted and needed the support.
Yes.
And he feels like Wes took advantage of her. He feels like she's a victim. Mm-hmm. And what I felt like psychologically, I was like, oh, these are two people who are going to find their way back to one another, but just like not, like, I can't say about the health of the relationship, but I feel like the same wounds that led them to separate might be the same wounds that lead them to come back together, if that makes sense.
Totally. Again, like, maybe we're not saying they last the long term after that point, right? But it just feels like it would not surprise me in the slightest that there could be a potential reconciliation come the fall. After all this hoopla kind of dies down and like, the first season of In the City airs, right? Because it is going to be a lot of their drama that comes out and then they're going to have to do press together. Like there is a lot of them coming together as well. So, and here's the thing, this October, November will also be reminiscent of that summer of 2023. That was a brutal summer. That was the Hub House Carl blow up. That was also Carl and Amanda having their total meltdown. So there is a little bit of a rhyming scheme here with that summer. And so if you think about, okay, there was a formal break. So maybe it's the idea they finally filed for a divorce at that point, right? But again, this is not done until I would say Q1 of next year in terms of like the relationship dynamics at play between all three parties.
It's so interesting you talk about triangulation because I'm sure, as you know, I talk about that a lot psychologically speaking. When you have, two people who bring in a third party and what triangulation does, it's a way for people to manipulate or try to manipulate the situation by bringing in like a third party or like so I just find this interesting. So what I think you're going to need to do is come back
unpack it more.
Yeah, and like, well, not only unpack it more, but also like in August and these times, like maybe come back and we'll have to see what's going on and talk about it. I feel like, yeah, I would love for you to do that.
Oh my God. I mean, anytime I get to wax poetic about, the astrology, but also like how it's coming out and comparing notes. I mean, this is the most fun of my day. So anytime.
And again, we could talk forever. And I know people are super interested, but being mindful of your time, what I want to do now is you have a lot of services that you offer, a lot of different ways to find you. So what I would love for you to do is tell people, like, where can they find you?
Sure. So, of course, I have my website, agentofpluto.com. But to be fair, a lot of my inquiries, a lot of opportunities do come from my Instagram account, which is at the Pop Astrologist. I have my booking link up there. I'm currently rejudging my offerings. So, what I'm happy to even offer the Your Bish Therapist community is my 45-minute readings, which basically encompass, not to say like a total natal chart breakdown, but it is the idea of I want to understand your chart and then I want to talk about what's happening and how it's affecting your chart, you know? And so that is kind of what you get in this session, the same way that I kind of read you live. That's kind of what you get in these sessions. But of course, it's 45 minutes. And I'm happy to offer $30 off for that. It's because it's a new time, it's a new offering. Yeah, I mean, you can get obviously, 60 minutes or 90 minutes, but I think 45, especially if you haven't had a reading before and you're trying to understand like how does this work for me, I think is a
It's a good
nice little
starting point.
yeah, little
Yeah, a good
taste of what's
entry.
to come. For sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
And Tasha, I want to thank you so much, not only for giving, so for people listening to this, you will get a $30 off her 45-minute soul session with the code BISH, BISH. So what I
Mhm.
am going to do when this airs on Instagram, I'm going to add you as a collaborator and we're going to post links in stories. I'm going to post my links to my Patreon for people on Patreon listening to this. I know people will be like, how do I get my chart read? So I will post these links. And if any of you have trouble, just send me an email, yourbishtherapist@gmail.com, and we will get the hookup. Because, like you said, so generous of taking your time today, taking the time to read my chart, just, taking your time and expertise. I'm so grateful for you being here, Tasha. Please check her out. The Pop Astrologist. You're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, right?
Actually, I'm no longer on TikTok. LOL. I like kind of went through that psychosis after they the ownership changed and I was like, "You know what? Let me just remove myself from TikTok." But I am on YouTube, I am on IG, and I do have my Substack where I do like a lot of
Yes.
free weekly weather reports, if you will. So I kind of talk about what's coming up. So if you're interested, but you're like, "Ooh, I don't know yet," there is an option to sign up for like a free newsletter. So you kind of get a
Right.
vibe for what's to come in the upcoming week as well.
Yes,
And
it's the
that's
Pop Astrologist Substack, right?
yes, it
Yes.
is. And that's also in my link tree on my bio or my profile, I guess, on at the Pop Astrologist. So if you
Beautiful.
come to that page and you can't find anything, you're also welcome to just DM me, which a lot of people are
People
in my
will
DMs
DM
all the
you.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, people will DM you. Okay, so DM her, email me, but either way, we will get this all set up. And it's so funny, by the way, to close this out. I've been thinking of getting out of TikTok because not only I don't like the platform, I don't like what's happening with it on a
Mm-hmm.
corporate level, shall I say?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm also an elder millennial and it's just not my jam. So I think
Yeah.
this is a message to say I'm going to just let that go and
Yeah, yeah,
focus my
yeah.
energies on Instagram and YouTube as well. So thank you for modeling that for me today.
Well, anytime, friend. It was, you know what? I'm just so thankful to have gotten time to chat with you today. It's so fun. I know this has been a long time coming, but I'm glad we get to do it on this other side of the new moon as well. So I'm so
Yes.
excited to see what's coming up for you, honestly.
Yes. Well, obviously, you'll be you'll be in the loop, number one.
Mhm.
Number two, you're a friend of the show, and you will definitely be back when your schedule is appropriate. So, Tasha, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for also to my community. I was, vulnerable today in a way that I don't necessarily always feel comfortable with, but I'm really grateful for the community because I trust them. They're safe, wonderful, amazing people. And so, I'm really glad that they got to experience this. I feel it was really special. So thank you to everybody listening. Please don't forget to rate while we're
Yes.
talking about trolls. Give the podcast a 5-star review so that we can kind of like exit out all those other ones. But like we said, I'm not giving a shit about it, but please do. That helps me out. And just thank you for
Totally.
your support. So for everyone, we'll say thank you so much. Sending love to you and yours, and ta-ta for now. Disclaimer: posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.